Welcome to yet another Friday Live. You will note the depth of the night surrounding me. I had hoped to record during the daylight hours, which are now stretching all the way toward about 3:30 p.m. for sundown, which at this point in February, the general response around is, "Oh, look how long the days are getting," and it won't be, a while. It will be a while before the notion of daylight hours approximates the regions where I grew up. So by those standards, it's still dark most of the time here, but by local standards and my habits, look how long the days are getting. All right, there are one or two details of my life to share. For the last few weeks, I have been teaching for an Italian academy regarding role playing and specifically design of role playing games. And I find a single meeting per week for 5 weeks to be a fairly short amount of time, but on the other hand, an opportunity to be kind of bite sized about different modules or components or ideas, which is all fine, of course, except for the introductory course, which has no, has no business being bite sized. So anyway, that's what I'm doing right now is teaching 2 sections a week of that introductory one. I also have designed a course which is a deliberate sequel to that one, as well as a bunch of others which you may think of as sort of colorful applications. And I think you should take the first introductory course, not necessarily its sequel, in order to take those. So coming up soon, we'll be moving into a new term, concluding this particular set of courses next week. And then I'll be teaching the introductory class again, and I'll be teaching its sequel for the first time, which now a bunch of students will be eligible for, and hopefully some of them will want to take. Well, anyway, kind of excited about the whole thing. I've been pleased about how it's going, having to adjust my concepts of teaching to this, again, sort of more seminar, very short seminar, almost symposium version rather than a full-term course, which to me is extremely extensive. So what do I find? Well, lots of things that are properly, among me and the students and among me and the people who've had me do this. But one of my issues that has made life difficult today is that, well, flatly, I am chronically bad at pricing myself for things. And for some reason, I kind of give off that atmosphere or that impression as well, that I get kind of puzzled when it comes to concepts of, payment, how much, this is going to be worth. And perhaps it's a conceptual issue. I mean, the notion of negotiating your paycheck to me has always seemed to rest entirely in the hands of the people who have the money, and therefore my question to them is, what's it worth to you? Now, of course, their response and usually their habit is to ask first that very same question, which is kind of strange. You're kind of going, that kind of puts me into a tailspin of, you kind of hit the wrong brain with that question. What I'm supposed to guess what you might want to pay, and then I'm supposed to kind of like try and counter it. I mean, I don't get it. Well, there's tons and tons of self-help books about how to do this. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't undervalue yourself. Don't undervalue your time, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, there's my own work history, which ranks high in the list of professional expertise ratio to wretched pay. For those of you who don't know, back when I was really invested in the issue of the economic structure of university faculty, I found somewhat to my shock, and it was a shock to most people at the time, back in the late 90s, that 50% of all faculty nationwide in the US at the college and above and university level were contingent faculty, which is to say, in whatever arrangement, and it varied widely, they were not in the promotion track, which includes the detail of tenure. Everyone gets all excited about the tenure. What really matters is the promotion track and the idea that you are, hired there. The history of that system is just a nightmare and full of, oh my God, moments that I actually had to winkle out by actually investigating this, because nobody talks about it, nobody teaches it, and at this late date, almost everybody who's faculty anywhere doesn't know it. Well, in the thick of figuring all this out, as I say, this was over 20 years ago. We learned collectively, those of us who were interested in this nationwide, that 50% of the faculty across the board were not actually in that structure. And that we knew through experience that the nature of that employment, the non-promotion track faculty, was a mess of on-the-spot, basically shenanigans, ranging from being paid effectively like a waiter under the table, all the way to pretty much job jobs with full title of professor and healthcare and the works. Anyway, so it really, but crap pay, right? Absolutely crappy pay. So I kept myself involved in this issue and had, as well as, despite the efforts of a number of very dedicated people, had no success, and I mean zero success, through several interesting economic travails of academia. Those of you who remember the great cataclysm of 1994, with the congressional hearings on grant overhead, and then the interesting revisions and redistribution of university administrators throughout the nation over the next 5 years, and then the emergence of kind of these little tiger schools, which turned out not to have been relying on that source of funding, but had powerful science and other departments anyway, and how powerful and prominent those schools became by around 2000. And then it all reverses again with around 2006-ish, 2007-ish, when a full new arrangement occurred, especially in terms of construction investment, and architectural redesign basically became the new big money laundering thing. Pretty much a perfect miniature rewrite of the savings and loan scandals of the late 1980s, where everything got sunk into construction projects, which basically poured concrete all over the place and, kind of nothing happened. Well, anyway, I went through all this. So through all this restructuring and critical, craziness of redefining academia as an economic event, the number of contingent faculty, or the percent of contingent faculty, simply increased on the march, just increased. And much to my genuine horror, by the time that I decided that academia and I had had enough of each other in 2014, I found that it was 80%. 80%, just insane, crazy. That basically 80% of people teaching at the college and university level are not in the promotional track and cannot properly be said actually to have a job, and subject to literally no organized protection. I mean, the unions, the teachers' unions, the faculty unions don't give a shit about it. And the remarkable story thereof, remains yet to be told by some enterprising researcher. I bring all of this up for some reason, trying to recall what exactly. Oh, yes, which had to do with underpricing myself. So When I graduated from graduate school with more degrees and I would venture to say a rather good research and teaching record, I had spent the last couple of years before that actually dialing down the research slightly and dialing up the teaching because I had decided what I wanted to do. It was painfully clear to me that hiring practices were, well, they just weren't going to be anything that was going to be working for me. I'd been to literally, I mean, before I graduated, before I got my PhD, I'd been to a dozen job interviews or more, and was quickly realizing how these things worked. And I didn't really want to keep throwing my hat, at them in this kind of, um, you know, good luck, Charlie kind of way. So what I did was to decide upon a region, which was the Chicago area, and say that I wanted to go live there. And then I went and basically sat down with the departments and said, here I am. Here is my curriculum vitae. And I know damn well that you guys go begging every year at some point. You just go around hat in hand trying to discover everybody you can who's qualified in the region who could possibly cover a few classes for you. Because every college does that. You have all these, highfalutin methods of hiring faculty with incredible negotiations at the administrative level and all this complicated, voting methods and all this kind of stuff to find out this person you're going to hire. And then, whiplash, there you are just out there begging on bended knee for, we need some people in here who are qualified to teach this stuff. And, we'll throw you a few pennies so you can make rent. Oh, and by the way, sign this contract, which basically says that you don't really work here. And so I said, look, I know you people do this. The point is, do you want somebody full-time who's going to teach some kick-ass classes for you and likes it and is not interested in the promotion track, but wants a real job? And at that time, there were some like-minded administrators out there about this kind of thing. And so I was hired at both the schools I was interested in this capacity. So basically, and I said, I want the title of professor. I want to actually be a professor, and I want to, be involved in the faculty meetings, and I want to be, there. And I'm just not going to play that particular game. And astonishingly enough, as you might think, I didn't at the time. And I don't. They said yes. They took a look at the curriculum vitae and they looked at me and I was like, I'm on to you. I know what you're doing. And I'm the guy you need. And I was hired at both and got my pick. So anyways, there was a push at that moment as well to start hiring non-promotion track professors as real profs with real jobs, and that they would be treated basically as university employees with their own track of, improvement and promotion, just like any other university employee, nothing special about it. And I was all for this. I mean, I still am. It's a great idea. It's the way it should be. And all that other crap is crap. So anyway, that meant that we had to talk about pay. And as time went on, now the starting out of the gate, it actually wasn't that bad a start. But as time went on, university administrators got wise to the fact that we were actually beating the system in getting, real jobs. And they put a huge freeze on all contingent faculty's pay and then spent the rest of the time running around talking to lawyers to figure out how they could keep doing what they were doing before somebody sued them. Faculty, scientists in particular. And we were the people who were primarily involved in this at a deeply, with any power to negotiate. Okay, we're the scientists. And scientists are crap at this stuff. We don't know a damn thing about lawyering up or, protecting our interests against the people who are employing us, because we all have this romance about it being a meritocracy and how we're all, in it to win it together. Right. Administrators probably high-five each other behind the water cooler, whenever they get confirmed that this is how we think. So anyways, all these opportunities for me to say, excuse me, but you got to pay me more, I'm walking. Which any idiot, anybody, anyone in any job under the circumstances that I was in would have said and done and succeeded at. I'll give you some other truth, which is that when I did leave being a faculty member, the department head and administrators were still begging me to stay at my farewell party. I was a very, very, very valuable hunk of meat for them, and troublemaker as I often was. And they knew that they were going to have to pay through the nose to even begin to cover what I had been managing for them for 15 years. And so, of course I was, at that point I was done and I was fine. But all those 15 years, where was I with my battle axe saying, excuse me, but I'm not really asking a whole lot more here. And Joe, the lawyer here, has questions about your pay structure and how you are treating a full-time member of the faculty who, is good enough to get, his insurance from you and good enough for this and good enough for that. But for some reason, you don't seem to be according with required standards for pay increase and evaluation of performance relative to this, that, and the other. Did I ever do that? No. Did it occur to me to do it? No. I'm just bad at it, that stuff. And I proved it again this week with this class. I was happy to start up, and they were kind enough to say, we are interested in your needs of payment. And of course, I didn't realize, because I think of this as a nice thing, they're asking me because I'm dumb. And they're not cynical, these people. This academy is actually really, really nice people, and they're not trying to screw anybody. But what I should have asked is, what's it worth to you? We'll start there. And I can look at it, and then I'm got the right kind of mind. I can go and do the math and say, okay, look, I can figure out whether that's good enough for me to do this. But that's not the way that these things are done. Instead, I'm sitting here going, how much should I ask? I don't know. How does that work? Right? And then, of course, I get rattled. And then when they do quote an amount and I go and I try to figure out the exchange rate, which isn't hard. And when I try to figure out the hours, which isn't hard, and then I say, okay, for that amount of time, and this amount of work that I can easily anticipate, I know exactly how long it takes to get this stuff ready and what it takes, I should be able to say, that's good. And I screwed it up. I completely borked an exchange rate. I completely screwed it up. And I, ended up with a really small amount, which is fine. I don't feel cheated or anything. I totally said yes and whatever. And so we're doing that for the first term. And I said, we've got to renegotiate for the second term, the second contract. And the answer is yes, let's do that. What do I do but proceed to forget that it's 2 classes? And so I do the math and I was like, wow, that's crazy. I'm asking for this huge increase per class. That makes no sense. So I go ahead and I give them that. I'm thinking to myself, that's crazy. I just quadrupled the pay. That can't be right. And of course it wasn't, because, like an idiot. I'm teaching 2 sections. And so the increase that I really wanted really wasn't all that much, because it's 2 classes. And so then I had to go back and say, remember how I said I screwed up talking about money? Right. Yeah, I just did that again. So now we have to talk about it again. And you probably think I'm a dick because I asked for so much. Okay, no. Yes, I am asking for more because I, steeled myself to do so and all but apologized multiple times when I did that. And now here I am, dialing it down. What's that? Where am I coming from? Who is this guy? Telling you, whoever has to deal with me in regard to these things, they're either not in this case, but I can think of a number of cases where they were laughing all the way to the bank. Man, that mule is particularly stupid. He's going to pull and load and, haul all day. And he wants what? And here I am, behaving like a complete blitherer about the whole thing all the way through. The good news, things are going fine with that. Liking what I'm hearing, no problems with it. It's me who's the bonehead, and trying at least to keep his feet under him while trying to talk about it, which turned out to be significantly difficult. Again. All right. Well, that's all that has been going on this week. We are coping with COVID testing for reasons. Not such a happy time for that. We are also dealing with multiple questions of, what we the kids are kind of really getting cabin fever, and there's stuff we really would like them to do, stuff that they can do, stuff that they've said they want to do, but then it's dialed down due to social contact, and given recent events, that seems like a really good idea. So I'm kind of coping with all of that. Any other last little things? There were a bunch of cute things I was going to tell you too, kind of like, the pipe cleaners from last time, but I made a little mental list of some fun things to talk about, and can't really think of any at the moment. It's all gone out of the head. I hope all is well with everybody. I do delight in your comments. Please gift me with plenty. And should any of you feel interested in, doing a live one time for your own, let me know. And I'll pop you in the channel with me. Take care.